And welcome to another episode of the KU Tweets and News podcast. I predicted the game to be pretty close, and boy, I was dead wrong. I am Lane Stanberry, your host.
I'm Parker Titus.
And the Jayhawks dropped a fat hundo on the in-state rival Wildcats. I wondered if any of the Wildcat fans were bringing in the "We Own This State" signs, because Kansas now leads the series in the three major sports of football, basketball, and baseball by double digits in each of them. So, I mean, the Wildcats decided to try and run with KU, and it bit them in the butt. Let's talk about it. Again, I thought it would be a close game. Kansas State has some really, really great guards, and I wondered how KU would defend them, but K-State made a lot of tough shots still, and they still scored 83 points. But the Jayhawks were just so much better in transition. They made so many shots. They got so many open looks from everywhere on the floor, and they beat the century mark for free tacos. Final score 102-83. And one man, our National Player of the Year candidate, Ochai Agbaji, certainly had himself a big night, Parker.
Yep. Yeah, Ochai went off, really kind of proved that he is, again, one of the best, if not the best, three-point shooters in the country. Had 23 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. And he seems like really just a safe bet to score 15 every night, which makes him a Player of the Year candidate. Mm-hmm. As far as him being Player of the Year frontrunner, he's just not getting the media attention for some reason. Right. It's kind of back.
It's Sheblay and Ivy, it feels like.
And Davis and Coburn. I don't think I think he's All-American type. I don't think at this point the media is hyping him up enough. And I think it's all due to that Kentucky loss.
Yeah, it really sucks because that game, going in, Bill Self, you said, I don't think this game really matters a whole lot. Maybe it matters to the fans. And now it seems like that game is being held over their heads whenever anyone has a conversation about national title contenders. But on the topic of Ochai Agbaji, I've enjoyed watching him so much because when he has an open three, it almost feels like a layup. Like, I remember I was watching the All-Star game and you have Steph – I'm not saying Ochai Agbaji is Steph Curry, but you have Steph Curry has an open three and the commentator just said, that's a layup. So like when you see Agbaji in the corner, Bob Davis is going to give his swish if he were commentating. So I've just enjoyed watching him so much. I think he's I think he's the best pure shooter we've had since Frank Mason. And Frank Mason shot around 50% from three, and he shot it in the corner at the top of the key, guarded, unguarded. I think Agbaji rivals him because of the sheer volume of shots that Ochai Agbaji has gotten from deep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think Ochai has been great. He's not great off the dribble. I mean, he's had a couple of them where he comes off the dribble, but really most of the time it's just straightaway shooting, which is good because a lot of that is needed in the NBA when the stars draw the action. You need to be able to hit off the catch. So
and his catch and shoot game, especially off those elevator screen plays, is insane. And then I feel like once a game he has a three where he just takes a little dribble at the top of the key and nails it. Like he had one of those against West Virginia. It was crazy. The dude can just hit from anywhere. He has inside the gym range, as some people would say. Mm-hmm. But another interesting player who's kind of been up and down at times, but we've certainly seen his ups as of recently, is Christian Braun. Tell me about him.
Yeah, Christian played just as well. Had a 20 ball too. Also had 7 rebounds and 5 assists. Had a couple steals. Shot pretty well from the 3-point line. Although they weren't playing any defense, it seemed like. I know we were hot, but they weren't playing any type of defense. I think he's a great 3-point shooter. He proved that his freshman year when he could just stand in the corner and shoot. Now teams, this year really and last year suffocated him from the 3-point line. So it's hard to get those shots off. But what he is doing well is driving to the rim and finishing at the rim. He's our best finisher. Maybe you could argue Wilson, but really Brown's been the best as far as consistency goes all year.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that his 3-point numbers will even out towards the end of the year because, the law of averages always ends up prevailing. And I feel like he's a much better shooter than he's shown. I think so when he has games where he goes 3 of 4 from 3 like he did in the last one, it doesn't surprise me a whole lot because he's only shooting like 34%, 33% on the year from 3. But It doesn't surprise me a lot because we saw that he can be hot from 3 and he has a good shooting stroke. So I feel like he's bound to have games where he goes 3 of 4. He has deep range, and I'm glad to see that he still has a quick trigger. And he's also a dog. Like he plays tough defense. He shows up in the rivalry games. He shows up when the games really matter. And it feels a lot different from last year. It felt like, he felt like Wayne Selden, like freshman and sophomore Wayne Selden last year. He was just kind of a really streaky guy. When he was on, he was great. When he was not, it was like, okay, he's a decent player. He's a role player on the team when he's not on. But I feel like we've just gotten a lot more consistency out of Brown lately. And that could be the key if the Jayhawks want to make the Final Four.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. He is kind of the X factor, him and Wilson, I would say, for this team. If they're hitting threes, we're really hard to beat.
Yeah, absolutely. And now let's talk about another guy who, if he's hitting threes, Kansas is definitely hard to beat. DeJuan Harris, 6 points, 7 assists, 1 steal, and 2 turnovers. Really a pretty good game from DeJuan Harris. He had 2 really ugly turnovers, but having 7 assists and flipping in all those, he made some tough layups. And I can't believe how some of those went in. I don't think he's going to be making those against better, more athletic competition, but you got to hand it to him. It was a really good game. But I think Yesufu may have made the better impact on the game because he continually pushed the pace, which, K-State, they wanted to run. And Joseph Yesufu was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And he even made some shots. He was 3 of 5 from the floor and 2 of 4 from 3, 9 points on the day. I'm loving what I'm seeing out of Joseph Yesufu. We were talking before the podcast about Remy coming back. And I think Joseph is, unless you start him, I feel like, do you think this is his ceiling?
Joe?
Yeah.
Joe's ceiling?
For this year.
Probably just because of the amount of minutes he's going to get. DeJuan's going to get his 25 plus. There's no arguing that right now, just from self standpoint. And so unless, Harris gets in huge foul trouble, which he has a couple times here in the past few weeks. So
Texas Tech.
Right. So, I feel like he's starting to feel more confident in Yesufu, as is everybody in the KU fan base. So I feel like this isn't his ceiling. I think, if he's taking more shots, he gets more confident. That's scary, Joe. That's scary.
Oh,
Joe, right
absolutely. And now let's talk about the other point guard on this team, Remy Martin. We talked last week about he did not play against Kansas State, but it looks like he did get in a few limited practices before K-State. Bill Self said he didn't expect him to play, and he did not play. But today at Bill Self's presser, as of, what's the date? February 24th, he said he did practice. We don't know to what extent, but I'm going to assume because he wasn't limited that he practiced fully, which typically means that you end up playing that week. But I think what you're going to have to look at is comfortability. And going on the road on College game day against the number 10 team in the nation, I don't think is a game that you're going to really be able to get comfortable. Now, if it comes down to kind of like an emergency situation, I could see, an active Remy Martin playing maybe 5 to 10 minutes. If you do see him this week, I don't think he'll play very much. But what I think the good thing to take away from this is I feel like it definitely means Remy Martin is probably going to return.
Yeah, I think at some point, I definitely think he's not playing this Saturday, just from what I heard from Self, just saying kind of like, I haven't even talked to Remy since Tuesday. And so that kind of gives me the impression that he's not even close to playing yet. Maybe the TCU game this week, but after this week, we have the Big 12 tournament. After once Saturday hits, we have the 3 games left, the TCU, Texas. And if he doesn't get in, 2 or 3 games before Big 12 play, I just don't. I mean, it's really hard to see him being fully fledged back into the offense. I could see him being kind of a. I think they mentioned it on the broadcast, like a special play type of player, or come in and if we're in foul trouble, give us 5-10 minutes. Or if it's a good matchup, putting him in. But I just don't see Remy getting the volume that he had earlier in the season just from the amount of trust that Self will have since he hasn't played for so long. It's kind of
Yeah,
like Clements, right?
yeah. Well, here's the thing. Here's what I think. I did read from Matt Tate that he said that that is very typical for players not to talk to coach the day after a game because they typically have the day off the next day. So they said that's very typical of like star guys, walk-ons, bench players to not talk to the coach on their day off, to just kind of have the day to themselves. But I can certainly see what you're saying in that if he's wanting to game plan, then he might definitely want to see, are we going to have Remy? But personally, I think he's just too good to keep off the floor. Even when he was 50%, he still played around 20 minutes a game. So I think he's played basketball enough, and I think he understands the system enough. Maybe he hasn't been in it, but at least he's been practicing. It seems like for about a week now, because they said that he practiced limited on Thursday. So which means he's probably gotten in a week of practices. So again, we might not see him on Saturday. If we do, it'll be probably mostly extremely limited. But I think we do see him next week at some point. I'm thinking we get to see what he can do against TCU in Fort Worth. And for another injury update, David McCormick did have some soreness in his foot, which he's had some issues with this season. And I guess he did have a little bit of knee issues a couple weeks ago. Bill Self says they think he's fine and they think that's where he was supposed to be, where they expected him to be, but that they might rest him during the Big 12 tournament, which we were talking again about before the podcast. Maybe that opens up some minutes to maybe have Remy Martin in a 2 to 3 guard lineup. Imagine Harris, Yesufu, and Martin. It's a very short lineup, but if Yesufu truly is not a point guard, then maybe you could foresee maybe Bill Self goes nuclear and has those 3 on the floor, because he did try a Pettiford, Harris, Yesufu lineup for a little while against Oklahoma State. But I mean, I'm hoping Dave is okay. I'm hoping he gets enough rest and that he's able to play in the Big 12 tournament to some extent. But I would rather rest him for the NCAA tournament if it comes down to that.
Right. I agree with you. I think, if it comes down to it, I think we need to rest him. But it would be sad if we were going in, if we finish out the year, if we win at Baylor on Saturday and then finish out the year undefeated, it would be kind of a momentum killer if we went and lost the first or second round or third round there in the Big 12 tournament. So it is what it is.
Yeah. But I mean, there have been a couple teams in the past that have lost in the Big 12 tournament and still had a good March run. Like the 2012 team got blanked by Baylor in the quarterfinal, I believe. The Josh Jackson team, which I still think was the best team in the tournament in the Elite Eight, they played extremely well for 3 rounds. And I still think they played pretty well in the Oregon game. So it doesn't always equate to a poor March run, but you absolutely do. Like the Devontae Graham team won the Big 12 tournament. So you like that momentum going in. And an interesting fact I've always thought of, I can't remember what the stat was. I think it was like maybe it was 9 straight years, the national champion didn't win their conference tournament.
Wow.
So it was some insane stat, and Baylor didn't win their conference tournament last year. So, you never know with stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that is it for our Kansas State recap. The Jayhawks win 102-83. Now let's talk about the Big 12. Baylor escapes Oklahoma State, which would have been an insane game winner by Isaac Likely, which we've never known anything about that before. But they escaped Oklahoma State 66-64. Parker, do you have any concerns about Baylor without Jonathan Tchamwa Tchatchoua?
Yeah, I mean, Bill was in the presser today saying, the shots that Baylor took versus us the first time, those guards could easily make, especially Adam Flagler.
Mhm.
If Flagler starts getting going, I think he scored 29 versus Oklahoma State in their last game. He can get hot real quick. So
Yeah.
I think the key to last game was shutting down their guards. So it's going to be the same way. Are we going to play great defense and push the pace? Because Baylor is more of a slower team. We're going to grind it out and make tough shots. We're more push the pace, get easy shots. So if we're getting easy
Hmm.
shots and guarding their guards, I think we have a good chance again.
Yeah,
There's no
I
way we
agree.
blow them out again, though,
Yeah, I
which
don't
we'll
think we
talk
blow them
about.
out, but I do think there's a big advantage, big distinct advantage for Kansas inside the paint. I think I think Jonathan Chamochachua. I pray he has a great recovery, but that's a huge loss for Baylor inside. Um, TCU takes down West Virginia 77-67. The day a couple of days before going down to Texas, or losing to Texas and Austin, and they even had a chance.
Mhm.
They had a lead early. So
Yep.
we have two TCU games next week.
Yep.
Are you afraid of those games? Or, I mean, I don't know if afraid is the right word, but do you think KU should be on upset alert after watching TCU the past two games?
No, I think TCU is definitely a tournament team, though. So
I agree.
they've definitely improved and have done well in the Big 12. But they don't have the type of bench, they don't have the type of bigs, they don't have the type of wings that can compete with us. So
Yeah,
unless we just shoot bricks all game, I don't really have any huge concerns there.
yeah, I agree. Texas Tech takes down Oklahoma 66-42, and that sounds like a really ugly game. I'm glad I didn't have to watch that one. I mean, what do you have to say about Tech? They might be as hot as anyone in the country right now.
Yeah, I mean their defensive efficiency is pretty insane.
Mm-hmm. Iowa State gets a much needed win against West Virginia 84-81. West Virginia is such a weird team. They look decent against Kansas. They didn't look amazing, but they look like they could probably hold their own against a couple against some decent teams. But
Mhm.
man, losing to Iowa State, not not a good look.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on with them. Ever like they have like so many losses in a row. It's kind of embarrassing at this point. So
Yeah, yeah,
not really sure what's going on with them. Hopefully they can regroup or something next year because they just look horrible this year.
yeah. Let's look at the Big 12 standings. Kansas at 12-2, Texas Tech and Baylor tied at second and 11-4, Texas at 9-6, TCU, K State, Iowa State, Oklahoma State all tied at 6-9/6-8 because of the TCU rescheduled game. And then you have OU at 4-11 and West Virginia at 3-12 at the bottom. I think K State's good enough to get into the tournament. What do you think?
They got to have at least one more win, one statement win as we go down the line here. So let me look at their schedule real quick. I think they have, so they have at home versus Iowa
Iowa State.
State, at Tech, and then versus Oklahoma. So they for sure got to get the two at home. And
Mm-hmm.
then they got to at least compete in the Tech. And then if they don't beat Tech, they got to have a good Big 12 run.
Yeah,
But if they beat Tech, I feel like they'll be in.
mm-hmm. I agree.
So we'll see what happens. They need a win.
I agree. Around the NCAA, Arkansas seems like a little bit of a resurgence after starting the year 10-5, I believe, taking down Florida 82-74.
Yeah. I predicted this just because I predicted Florida to beat Auburn, and they teams usually do that where they beat a good team then lose to
And then
a
they just fall back to
yeah
mediocrity right
yeah
afterwards.
yep.
Alabama barely holds on against Vanderbilt, 74-72. Again, you basically get the Alabama slot machine Crimson Tide. You never really know which Alabama you're going to get.
No, yeah, that team is really up and down.
I
So
I pray that Kansas doesn't have to play them in the second round because if Kansas plays them, we're going to get the sevens on the slot machines that line
yeah,
up. We're going to get 7-7-7 Alabama
right.
if we play them.
Yep.
Uh, Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, it's just our luck that would happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Iowa destroys Michigan State 86-60. God, what is happening to Michigan State?
Yeah,
You feel
Michigan
bad for I feel
State's
bad for those fans. That's so sad.
How do you go from a top 10 team to
Yeah.
not even close to, maybe the bubble as the season ends almost.
And they have good players. They have good players too. It's not like their team's bad.
Yeah.
I'd say
really
it's comparable to their teams in the past.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate. UConn takes down Villanova 71-69 in a barn burner. I still think Villanova's good. I think KU loses those types of games all the time. Like it reminded me a lot of the Texas game.
Yeah. They kind of got beat at the very end just because the dice rolled one way.
Exactly. Auburn beats Ole Miss 77-64. Not even going to entertain that one. Ole Miss is a scrub. 6, Kentucky takes down LSU 71-76 without their starting guards. And I'm a little terrified that Kentucky may be the best team in the nation because of that, because that shows a lot of resilience.
Yeah. It'll be interesting their next game versus Arkansas to see, if their guards play or not.
Number 7, Duke takes down Virginia 65-61. Coach K definitely didn't pass by Tony Bennett in the handshake line this time after he got the win. I'm so ready to see him leave. I'm so ready for him to be done. I hope KU gets to end his career in the tournament. Put Duke in our bracket, please, bro. Please.
I'd be okay with
David
the Duke
McCormick
too.
Smack Paolo Banchero. He would smack
I'd be okay with the Duke too. As a two.
I would love it. Providence takes down Xavier in 3 overtimes. Insane game.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Insane game.
It's a really fun game to watch.
Yeah, Providence is legit. And Wisconsin holds on against Minnesota 68-67. Another Big Ten team that's extremely streaky. That's just the entire Big Ten. They're all insanely streaky. And that is it for recapping the NCAA and the Big 12. Now let's talk about Q&A. First question from Casual Pooper 2. I like that handle. If you could combine features of 5 different KU basketball players into one superstar, who would you choose and why? So I'm going to assume that this is current players. So I'm going to take the defense of DeJuan Harris, the 3-point shooting of Ochai Agbaji, the heart of Remy Martin, the dunking of Christian Brown, and the strength of David McCormick. And then I think you get Wilt Chamberlain. I'm
Not Wilt again.
Who you got, Parker?
That's a tough question. Give me the experience of Mitch Lightfoot.
Oh, Lord.
He's played in Lightfoot how many games?
Oh, God.
Just the experience. I don't want anything else. I don't want anything else from Mitch Lightfoot. Give me his experience. I think you got to have Ochai's 3-point percentages in there. Give me Christian Brown's bulldog attitude. Okay. And then give me David McCormick's hook shot in the inside 3 feet. David McCormick's hook shot.
Or even the hook shot that he's getting contact and he kind of throws it up there and it goes in.
Don't give me that one. Don't give me that one.
But it always goes in.
Right. And then give me Remy Martin's top of the key 1 dribble pull up mid range.
And it goes in.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't even know who that forms, but probably, I don't know, Devontae Graham within the body of Cole Aldridge. I don't
know. Next question from Mike Johnson. Is there any way this team can still take their defense to another level? Their postseason success depends on it. I absolutely believe they can. And if you actually look at the numbers, comparatively to the rest of the nation, their defense isn't horrible. It's ranked 32 on KenPom, which is pretty good if you look at it from a macro sense. Like they're definitely not playing a top 10 defense, but they're playing against some pretty strong teams. Like Oklahoma is no slouch on offense, in my opinion. So I feel like Kansas's defense really hasn't been horrible. I think it can absolutely improve because I think we've made a lot of mental mistakes on the defensive end. But I still think we've yet to play our best basketball, which is really scary for how good this team has been.
Yeah. I think we've shown spurts. I think our best defensive game of the year is going to be versus Baylor, where we shut down their guards, only allowed them to, whatever points it wasn't much, and they pounded it in at the end
59.
on our walk-ons. They really should have had like 50 points.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be our best defensive performance. I think we'll do that again, maybe once or twice, and then we'll be hopefully a little less than that in the tournament. But I think if we continue that, I mean, obviously the pace of the K-State game wasn't good for our defensive numbers just because they wanted to push it. And we're like, if we're going to push it, we're going to run too. I think when you start making a lot of shots too, you kind of let up on the defensive end a little bit, which is what I saw KU do at least.
Right. From Mount Oriad Cause, if Remy Martin does not play again this season, how far can KU go with DeJuan, Joe, and Jalen Wilson being the primary ball handlers? I think they can still go to the Final Four. I think they proved that. They were able to smack one of the best teams in the country in Baylor. They are 12-2 in the Big 12 with almost no Remy Martin. And when they have had Remy Martin, he's been 50%. And the reason I say that is because Jalen Wilson has been so good and Joe Yesufu has gotten so much better. If you told me at the beginning of the conference season, without seeing how Jalen Wilson has played now and without seeing how Joe Yesufu has played now, I would have told you maybe we get to the Sweet 16. But based on what I've seen from Jalen Wilson and how great he's played, I still think the sky's the limit. I think the team can win a title without Remy Martin. Things just have to go well.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it's all about matchups at that point. Could this team get knocked out in the second round? Yes. Could this team win a national championship? Yes.
Yep.
With or without Remy. If we're thinking, that we have, the 1 seed and we're expected to beat teams that we are expected to beat, if we beat them, I would say to Elite 8, I mean, we're definitely a top 8 team when it comes to even not having Remy. I think Remy brings us up to that top 4 caliber. So, I still expect us to make a good run with or without him.
Yeah, and I hope that we get to play a WCC team in the second round. From BD Griffin 50, likelihood of stealing one in Waco. We're going to talk about that here in a second, so stay tuned. From Large Dave Deluxe, one of my favorite guys on KU Twitter. Who ideally do you want to see in our region if KU is a 1 seed? I want to see Duke as a 2. I want to see Providence.
I want to see Houston.
I want to see Houston
as a 4. I want Houston as our 4, please.
Make Houston a 4 seed. Yeah, let Houston keep winning so they can be a 4 seed. I wouldn't mind Purdue. I wouldn't mind UConn. Depending on where they're and like I said before, give me a WCC team in the second round. Yeah. That's who I'd want. I'd want Duke or Purdue as a 2 seed. I'd want a WCC team in the second round, and I'd want Houston as a 4 seed.
Yeah, I'd be okay with in the second round playing either a ACC team like a Miami that have had their games where they went off, but I mean, they're not going to beat us. And I'd like to see maybe in the Sweet 16, a Houston or potentially even a team that has done well in the SEC like Arkansas, but they're not anything special. I could see them moving up to the 4 line or something like that. And like
someone who could be on upset alert for sure. We would want our bracket to be exploded as possible.
Yeah. And I'd love Duke or Purdue as a 2. And then Providence obviously would be a great 3.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Providence is good, but comparatively to the other 3s, I would love Providence.
Yeah.
From Believe in Negan, averaging 8.2 points, 2.9 assists, and 1.7 turnovers, this team has come together without Remy Martin. Why are you so dead set on making him out to be more than Josh Selby 2.0? Agree to disagree, buddy. Remy Martin is a second-team All-American and has scored 1,900 points in his career. His track record speaks for itself, especially when he smacked us twice. So Remy Martin is a good basketball player, and if he's on my roster, I'd probably prefer him to be playing. Any comments?
Yeah,
Brody?
I'd probably agree with you. I mean, it's just been so weird with the transfers and stuff lately that it's hard to justify anything right at this point. But we are kind of running out of time to say that Remy wasn't a failure. So
It's true.
we'll see.
At Mies for Icon, I hope I'm spelling that right. I watched the KSU game twice, once watching the ball, once watching off the ball movement. Not a lot of off the ball movement unless an active play. Why don't we have more off ball movement to distract defense and or create plays? Because I feel like a lot of the times, you've heard Self say that they kind of just run a lot of motion, especially because KU ran a lot in transition. He said that they haven't been calling a lot of as many plays lately. They kind of just run motion offense and try and get their guys open shots. But I feel like we are able to, one of the things that we are really good at, and Bill Self is really good at, is scheming touches into his big men. And David McCormick was out for a lot of the game. And Mitch Lightfoot isn't really a guy that you want to scheme touches to and be a go-to guy when he's in the game. He has a great left shoulder, but he's not going to be a guy that you think that I need to get the ball in to be able to play through this guy. So that might be one of the reasons why you didn't see as much off-ball movement.
I think that is just because of the offense that we run. I mean, our main offense is that dribble weave and then set the pick at the top. Or we either do that or we come down and throw it into the post. So our offense gets into it, and we shoot fairly early in the shot clock most of the time. So I feel like with that shot, shooting that early, it's hard to get so much more movement on the backside of things.
Right. At Jayhawk Focus, who do you see leaving the team after this season? Ochai Agbaji. Let me look. Ochai Agbaji, Jalen Coleman-Lands, Mitch Lightfoot,
Remy. Obviously, yeah. I mean, those are four for sure. I would say McCormick's gone, just from what people have been saying. And then I would also say Christian Brown's gone. He's projected for early second round. And usually Self encourages players, if they're for sure going to get drafted, to go, to leave. So at this point, Christian Brown's playing well enough that I think he's attracting some attention from some NBA teams. So I could see him leaving, unless we get knocked out early.
If we get knocked out early, then I could see some guys coming back. But if we go to a Final Four, I think Christian Brown's gone if he's drafted. I do think, though, if he's mid-second round, I could see him coming back. I also feel like David McCormick could come back because he's just not an NBA player. I love David McCormick, but he's not a guy who's going to get minutes in the NBA. So I think, and with how NIL works, and how much money he could make off of that, I could definitely see him staying for a fifth year. So that's the only one I'm kind of unsure about. And Christian Brown, I want to see how he finishes the year first. I think Jalen Wilson's coming back.
Yeah, I agree with.
I don't think his shot is ready.
Yeah, I mean, he could be potentially one of the leaders on next year's team. Yeah, so
he could be.
I think that improves his stock.
Agbaji, I don't think he could be as good as Agbaji, but he could be up there.
Yeah.
He'd definitely be first. He's first team all Big 12 right now, in my opinion. Imagine him next year. He'd probably be preseason player of the year.
Probably, yeah.
Mm-hmm. At WitW88, is Kentucky a bad matchup for KU because of athleticism, size, or style of play? Or was it just a bad day? Are there other teams KU would like to avoid in March matchup-wise? I think it is a kind of a rough matchup, but I think KU's good enough to beat them. I think it's hard because I think it was a combination of both. I think it was a tough matchup, but KU has the shooting to overcome it. But I think, Bill Self wasn't even in Lawrence for the entire week of practice. So that makes me kind of cautious to judge the team based on that one game. Yeah. So I think KU is better than what they showed against Kentucky. In terms of other teams that I'd like to avoid, I don't think Auburn is super good, but I would like to avoid Auburn just because of how athletic they are and because they have a gigantic center. I would like to avoid Texas Tech in the semifinals of the Big 12 tournament. I would not like to play them in the middle of the week. Villanova, just because, of how things have gone before. Other than that, and then just generally, the 7 seeds are so good this year. Like there are some 7, 8, 9, 10 seeds that are insanely good. Like imagine having to play Iowa in the second round. Iowa is ranked 15th in Ken Palm. It doesn't sound fun. So honestly, I would just like to I would like to have KU play against a team that should be an 8 seed in the second round if they have a 1.
Yeah. I think as far as the Kentucky matchup goes, I think it is somewhat of a bad matchup if we have a bad matchup team. But in that game also, I mean, you talk to any Kentucky fans, they would say that that game was their best game they've ever played. They weren't missing. It was kind of a fluky thing because they were just making everything. Like Sheboy probably hasn't made a mid-range shot since he's played us. So, I mean, so it just really depends on really the day. But I think, you know, if we played Kentucky again, it'd be a really close game.
I agree.
But I couldn't predict who'd win that right now. Teams to avoid, I would also say Auburn. I think they have a big that can shoot. That would give us troubles. If not, he would take us inside. Their freshman big is a stud. Any really team that has bigs that can shoot. So Villanova, they play 5 shooters. I could see that hurting us. A Tech, like you said, Bryson Williams always kills us, so it'd be a struggle to play them. I mean, unless we're playing Clements a lot to guard the pick and pop, and he was doing good in the post as well. Even a team like Arizona, where they have a couple bigs that are can play inside out, and is kind of scary too. But I think we would beat Arizona. So I would say Auburn. I don't want to see Auburn. I want to see Villanova, and I don't want to see Tech at this point in the season.
Yep, I agree. From Five Ives, who I love his account, and he finally followed me this week. So thank you for finally following me. Who are they putting up in the rafters? Because there's that empty space, and I think the answer is Thomas Robinson.
Yeah, I think the last person was the Morris. Was it Marcus Morris that got his retired? So I mean, it would have to be from the 11-12 team. So you would think it'd be T-Rob. I'd be very surprised if they skipped over him. And I don't think anybody else on the 11-12 team, unless they do Markeith.
He was Big 12 Player of the Year, wasn't he? That'll get you in the rafters.
Yeah.
And then the last question, which we'll have a lot of fun with. I asked this of Rock Chalk Log, and I'm excited to hear their answers. But your top 5 or your all white guys making threes against Kansas team, and I'll read you mine. I've got Ali Farokhmanesh. I've got Evan Wessel. I've got Jacob Groves at the small forward. I've got Ryan Spangler at the 4, and I've got Jordan Eggleseder, who hadn't made a 3 or made 1 3 the entire year, and then banged in 2 threes against Kansas in the first half. So you got 2 Northern Iowans on my team. And the reason I picked Jacob Groves over Tanner Groves is because Tanner Groves is actually a decent shooter, and Jacob Groves is now shooting like 20% on the year, and I think he made 3 or 4 against Kansas last year. And he's just really scrawny, so it's more annoying because I think Tanner Groves is actually really skilled. So it was more annoying to see Jacob Groves make them than Tanner Groves.
Yep. So mine is a little bit more Big 12 focused. Obviously, I got Farokhmanesh, however you say it. I hate talking about him just because of that shot he hit, crushed my 4th grade dreams. I was at that game, by the way.
Yeah, that's tough.
All the K-State fans around me cheering, going crazy.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, really traumatic experience. So
you told me that anyway, I didn't know there were K-State fans cheering.
Oh yeah, K-State played in the same regional, so it was.
That sucks.
And they were decent that year. So, also at guard, I have Phil Forte. Of course, you have to be 5 feet behind the 3-point line if you want to make one. If you're him. At the other shooting guard, I have the infamous Brady Heslip with his 3 goggles splashing in 3. And then at small forward, I have Lindy Waters, who is my latest 3-point barrage on KU to keep them in games. And then at center, I did pick Tanner Groves just because every time he shoots a ball versus KU, you think it's going in, and it's just horrible.
And then he goes crazy as he's going back to the bench as Bill Self calls timeout after he bangs in his second 3 in a row.
Yep, pretty much.
Rough. I still remember watching the KU Eastern Washington game, and Jacob Groves shoots the ball, and as soon as he shoots it, you hear him say, "Another one!" And then it goes right in, and KU's down like 8. I'm like, oh my God, is this really happening? But all right, moving on from the Q&A, we've got the Baylor Bears, 23-5 on the year, 11-4 in the Big 12. They are currently tied for second place with Texas Tech. The win percentage for Kansas on Ken Palm is 38. On ESPN, it's 31. And on Bart Torvik, it is 36%. And this game is being played in Waco. 3 strengths for the Bears. Offensive rebounding, they are 36.9%, which is 5th nationally. Creating havoc, they turn teams over on 24% of their possessions, which is 12th nationally. And they also shoot a pretty good percentage from the field, 53.5%, which is 47th. In terms of their weaknesses, they do struggle to get to the line. They have a 27.3 free throw to field goal ratio, which is 267th in the nation. They are a relatively not great free throw shooting team, 69%, which is 257th in the nation. And then they do give the ball away a decent amount. They are 192nd in turnover percentage and 224th in steal percentage on the offensive end. Parker, how about you tell me about some of Baylor's impact players?
Yep. So it's the three same guards that we talked about last time we played Baylor. We got Flagler, who's shooting a sizzling 40% from 3-point line. He's averaging 13.7 points per game, thrown in 3 assists as well. I mean, he's been great for Baylor down the stretch. Kind of one of those guys that if he's open, he's going to make it too. It's kind of like a layup like Ochai. Next, you have LJ Cryer, who's been out for a long time. I think he played in one game, if I'm not mistaken, a couple weeks ago, but really hasn't played since then as well. So maybe he re-injured that. I haven't really done much research, but he's averaging 13.5 and shooting an even better 46.8 3-point percentage. So, I think we're probably not worried about him because I don't see him playing in this game, and even if he does, he might be a little bit rusty since he's not played 100%. In a while. Yeah. And then you have Akinjo, who's averaging almost 13 a game, and he's kind of their assist guy at 5.7. He's their go-to guy down the stretch.
Russell Westbrook.
Yep, he's going to pull from mid-range. So
takes a lot of shots.
Also, he had how many points versus KU last time? 0. Yep. So I mean, if they shut down Akinjo to 0, KU's going to win this game, in my opinion.
Yeah. So for about let's talk about analysis here. For a long time, I just pegged this as an L for KU. I just kind of built this into my mind. Okay, KU's probably going to lose this game. And if Baylor still had Jonathan Tchamwa-Tchatchoua, I think Kansas would still lose the game. But now that he's not on the team, I think there is a very, as I mentioned earlier, distinct advantage in the paint for Kansas. As long as, Dave McCormack, they said he was a little sore, but they think he's fine. I'm sure he's going to play his full complement of minutes against Baylor this Saturday. I think he'll have a really good game. I think our bigs will have a good game. I think we're going to dominate the paint in this one. I think Baylor will probably shoot much better than they did against Kansas. There's no way our defense can be as good as it was back in Lawrence. Kansas is definitely not going to blow them out, but I expect this to be a real back and forth type game that just has your heart racing until the very end. And so I just got to prepare for it because these late games, they're so hard to watch. But because of that distinct advantage in the paint, I think Kansas is going to get enough offensive rebounds, be able to create enough extra possessions to where they'll be able to hold the advantage for most of the night. I could definitely see Baylor winning this game. It feels a little bit like a coin flip, but Kansas has been really good in close games this season. I believe they're 5-1 in games decided under 5 points. So I'm going to take the Jayhawks to win this one 79-78 on an Ochai Agbaji game winner.
Wow, going straight for it, huh? Yeah, I think it'll be a good game. I think Baylor's going to hit some tough shots early and be up. I think they're going to play to their crowd. I think, though, that KU will weather it and make a run of their own. And hopefully at the end that they would be ahead. And I think really the keys of the game come down to Jalen Wilson rebounding like he did and guarding those freshman wings. It comes down to are we going to allow Kendall Brown to shoot wide open threes again, and is he going to make them? So because that was clearly the game plan last time. We're going to let that dude shoot because his shot's ugly. And
he made a couple of them.
Made a couple, but missed pretty badly and gave us some fast breaks on a couple too. So it all comes down to how well is Baylor going to shoot, especially in terms of in hard shots too. How well is Flagler and Akinjo going to make those hard shots? I think I'm going to take the Hawks just because it's hard not to right now. I'm going to take them 73-68.
Yeah, and that's a really great point about Kendall Brown, because the other person who's going to have a lot of open looks is Jeremy Sohan. Both of them not great three-point shooters. Kendall Brown is 9 of 30 on the year, and I believe he's played every game. Jeremy Sohan is 18 of 58, which is 31%. And the other guy Kansas was leaving on the three-point line a lot was Matthew Meyer, 36 of 110, 32% on the year. So I think the key of the game, the two keys of the game will be, one, can Kansas control the paint and get offensive rebounds? Two, will Jeremy Sohan, Kendall Brown, and Matthew Meyer make threes? I think that will be huge. If they can make threes, it does not look good for Kansas. If they make like 1 to 2, I'd feel really good about Kansas's chances in this one.
Yeah.
And that is the Baylor preview. Now let's get on to Pick'em. Parker is an astounding 43-19 on the year. Again, let me get this guy's bracket. I'm 35-27. I'm kind of happy with it. Let's go. 25 Iowa at Nebraska. Who you got?
I have Iowa. Nebraska's terrible.
I do too. Go Hawkeyes. Purdue, and they just said Fred Hoiberg will be back next year. He's getting an extension.
All righty.
Well, not extension, but a reworked contract. Number 4, Purdue at the car accident that is Michigan State.
I have Purdue just because I took Michigan State last week and they let me down. So I'm not going to go through that again. At least Purdue will make it close and not make me feel bad about that pick.
Yeah, I'm going to take Purdue as well. Michigan State, until they show me different, is Garbo. Number 6, Kentucky at 18, Arkansas. Do we know anything about Severe Wheeler or Tai Tai and if they're playing?
I think they're both day-to-day, as Bill Self and John Calipari put it, day-to-day, week-to-week, whatever that looks like. I'm going to take
I think
Kentucky.
That's an exact quote.
Yeah. Right.
Day-to-day, week-to-week.
I'm going to take Kentucky. I think they'll have enough firepower either way to beat Arkansas. I'm not nearly impressed with Arkansas and the way that they play, and they have a couple okay players, but they're nothing.
Yeah, they're
special.
a rock fight team. They like to turn games into rock fights. Like if you watch that game versus Auburn, they were just freaking bricks from three. Yeah. They were just bricks from three. So they're not going to outshoot anybody. I don't think Kentucky's due because they lost that game to Tennessee recently, but it's been a week for Tai Tai and Wheeler to sit out. So I think they're going to play, and I'm going to take Kentucky. But I really want to take Arkansas because I think that's a really tough place to play. But I'm going to take Kentucky in this one.
Also,
number 3,
Kellen
Auburn.
Grady has been absolutely
gosh.
insane.
Yeah, I don't want to play against that crap. Please don't make me watch Kellen Grady play against Kansas again. Number 3, Auburn at 17, Tennessee, which was easily the toughest game left on Auburn's schedule when we looked at it a couple weeks ago, and they've dropped 2 since then. Do you think Tennessee pulls off the upset?
This is a really good matchup from a standpoint of little guards guarding each other I think Tennessee has the height to guard and athleticism to guard the Auburn bigs. So I think this is a really, really going to be a fun matchup just from that standpoint. But I'm going to take Tennessee at home. They're a team that plays off the crowd. They scored like 40-something points this week. It was kind of embarrassing. I think it was away from home. But I think they're going to get Auburn. That's my upset pick again this week. I don't know why, again, it's versus Auburn. It just seems like this is likely just because Tennessee's beaten Kentucky at home and they're kind of playing a little bit better, except besides their last game, obviously.
I agree. I like the Vols. I think some of the cracks are starting to show in Auburn, even though they have the best player in the nation, or the one of the best NBA prospect in the nation. UCLA at Oregon State. I think UCLA gets back on track.
Yeah, I agree. Oregon State has won 3 games or something.
Bad.
You can't pick them. You can't pick them.
Wisconsin at Rutgers. Rutgers pulling off a lot of upsets recently.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think this will be a good one, but I have Wisconsin. I think Rutgers, after their streak there, they're kind of on a downward spiral streak now, losing some games. I think they're losing some momentum. I'm going to take Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think Wisconsin is just as streaky as Rutgers, so I'm going to do home floor and take Rutgers in this one. South Carolina and Frank Martin are on a little bit of a winning streak. At 24 Alabama, who you got?
I have Alabama. South Carolina, I haven't watched them much this year, but they haven't really competed at a high level in the SEC. So I'm going to go Alabama. I'm going to roll the slot machine.
Yep. I'm going to go with Alabama as well. Number 1 Gonzaga at 23 St. Mary's. Who wins, and does Gonzaga win by 20?
Gonzaga not by 20.
I'm going to say Gonzaga not by 20 as well. I think they have an off game. 16 USC at Oregon.
So this is my other upset pick of the week. I'm going to take Oregon here. Haven't been super impressed with USC. Oregon has to have this one to get in the tournament, so they're gonna put it all on the line. They have to have it. If they don't, I think people will have them out. This is going to be playing like they're playing Kansas in the Elite 8 game.
Yeah. And if they win, and if they do get into the tournament, they'll probably be a 9 seed in Kansas's bracket. I'm going to take USC in this one. I think Oregon tends to win games based on their physicality, and I think USC will be able to match it. Now we're on to Big 12 games. Oklahoma State at Oklahoma. Who you got?
Man. This one's really hard again. Every time this game comes up, it seems like it's a toss-up. I think Oklahoma State's playing better as of late. I think their guards are finally going to make some shots. OU's been absolutely horrible offensively lately, so I'm going to take Oklahoma State actually here.
Yeah, I'm going to take Oklahoma State as well. I liked what I saw against Baylor.
Yeah, kind of the last game Oklahoma State can really hang their season on as well, since they won't be playing in any postseason stuff. So they might come out and say this is kind of our game to win.
Yep. Number 20 Texas at West Virginia. I think we're both picking Texas, right?
Yeah. Hard to pick West Virginia right now in Big 12 play.
Iowa State at Kansas State, must win for the Wildcats.
Yep, give me K-State. Iowa State's just so stagnant on offense. It'll be really a game of whose bigs are better.
They're both horrible. Bigs. Yeah, yep. I like K-State as well. I think Nigel Pack makes the difference. Texas Tech at TCU. Do you foresee any kind of upset here?
I don't. I think Tech's going to pull this one out. TCU probably doesn't have enough scoring to overcome Tech's defense. I'm going to take Tech.
Yep, I like Tech as well. Even though TCU went up early, I think Tech is too physical for TCU. And thank you so much for joining us in another episode of the KU Tweets and News Podcast. If you like our content, if you could please hit that subscribe button and also hit like, as it helps us out with the algorithm. And make sure to get your questions in every week. Even if you just DM them to me or reply to any of my tweets, we will definitely answer them on the podcast. But, man, that was a lot of fun, Parker. I am your host, Lane Stanberry.
Yep, and I'm Parker Titus.
And maybe we can pull one out in Waco. Let's do this.
Yep, rock chalk.